whatever direction it wants.
Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to Tapas Project Shaala. I'm Preeti Vikram, one of the founders of Tapas. It gives me great pleasure today to be hosting a panel discussion amongst parents. And these are parents who have been in different walks of life but have had a somewhat similar journey. We also have a parenting expert who is with us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our eminent panel today. First, I'd like to introduce you to Manoj Telakat. He is the CEO of Flex Eye Partners, an international HR firm with operations in India, UAE, Oman, and Qatar, focused on leadership hiring. He's also the co-founder of EdDeed, India's first immersive search and discover platform for education. He is the co-admin of Bangalore Schools community with over 67,000 plus parents, and which is where I have known a lot about Manoj. He has had 25 years of professional experience in various industries like banking, telecom, FMCG, recruitment, and training. He has worked in organizations like Glowplast India, Glowplast Limited Idea, Reliance, and ICICI Bank. He has had 20 plus years of experience as a speaker and trainer with national and international exposure. He's conducted programs in Dubai, Oman, Qatar, Japan, and Malaysia, apart from assignments in India. He was selected as the only trainer from India to conduct trainings at the World Congress of JCI held at Kanazawa, Japan. Attended by over 10,000 delegates from over 124 countries and at the ASPAC convention in Malaysia. He is a passionate driver. He's done a 23-day, 10,000 kilometers drive from Kerala to Kashmir. He's a trained musician and a foodie by heart. He's the regional trainer for BNI, the world's largest networking organization. Wow, that's a very powerful profile that you have there, Manoj. A very warm welcome to Tapas Project Shaala.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Thank you for having me here today morning. Good morning to everyone.
Next, we have another very interesting speaker today. We have Ms. Kavita Sameer Angre. She specializes in helping children in discovering their potentials and empowering their abilities in learning as the director of Shaala Learning Center. She designs and assists children in reaching their unique potentials by creating a loving environment for learning. She is committed to meeting the educational needs of the exceptional child. She's had a professional experience as the director of Shala from 2006, where they do identification and assessment of children's abilities, potentials, and learning styles, experiential education and Montessori based learning methodologies for children with diverse needs, collaboration with facilitators, counselors, psychologists, therapy centers, and other special schools, among other things. She's also been the counselor for Karnataka 2007 to currently. She's a trainer and mentor again in Karnataka from 2006. She's conducted leadership workshops, and she's been in the field of education from 2006 and comes with a vast experience in talking to parents as well as children who are probably at the periphery of the education system. So a very warm welcome to you, Kavita. Really happy to have you as part of this broadcast, as part of this stream. I'm sure we'll have many valuable points to take away from your session. Next, we
Thank you
have
so much.
Wonderful. Next, we have Raja, Varun, and Netra, who are the founders of Start Desi Products and Prakriti Farms. Start Desi is a startup conceptualized to revive and promote traditional foods and blend to suit the modern day equipment's requirements under the brands Forgotten Foods and Pleasantry. They also own Prakriti Farms, which is an organic and natural farm at the outskirts of Bangalore, following permaculture and Palekar methods of farming. This farm was founded on the principle of creating a sustainable and holistic lifestyle and to bring about an awareness of coexistence with nature amongst people. Prakriti offers eco friendly farm stay vacations for people to relax and reconnect with nature. Raja, Varun, and Netra are also parents of a child in an alternative space. So, a very warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Great. So, without further ado, let's start this conversation. I want to ask all of you to begin with what has been your personal philosophy of parenting. And if you could just take a couple of minutes to talk about your personal philosophy of parenting. Manoj, will start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be in such an allied panel. Great to see Kavita, Netra, Varun here. My I have two children. The elder one is going to her second year in BBA. The younger one is currently 14 years old. He's being homeschooled. I've always believed in one thing, which is a philosophy related to independence. And I always felt that a child needs to be treated not like a child all through their lives. They need to be treated as adults at some point of time. And with that comes a lot of independence, a lot of responsibility, a lot of freedom. That's what I've always believed in, and that's what I've given to both of them, to be able to take decisions as and when it is required. And come what may, I'm going to be there behind you as your sounding board, as your pillar. If it goes wrong, it is perfectly fine, because then I'll watch out for you. I'm not going to hold you responsible for your actions. I'm not going to counter you on the decisions that you're making, nor am I going to ponder upon it later that you took a decision and went wrong. Decisions are always a 50-50 chance. Some will go right, some will go wrong. So the moment you're able to tell them that it is perfectly fine to take a decision, and 50% of the chances you're going to go right, they always want to take those decisions in their hand. And that's been my founding philosophy in terms of parenting. And I always believe that it has worked, at least for my children, because both of them have taken decisions in their lives that they wanted to pursue, what they wanted to do. And to a great extent, they are there where they wanted to be. And if it goes wrong later, also, it is perfectly fine, because we always have enough and more turns in the road that you can always take. To answer in a very simple nutshell, independence and responsibility, that is my philosophy of parenting.
Beautiful. And how many of us got it right the first time, right? I'm sure we got our careers wrong and somehow we've landed where we are today. So brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, Manoj. Kavita, can you share a little bit about your personal parenting philosophy?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it has been a journey. I can say parenting has been a journey for me. I'm a mother of four. And for me, every child has taught me something new. And every time I feel I have become a better person. Like I think 2010 was my version 4, and so I've upgraded myself and I've upskilled myself as being a mother of children, as well as being working with children for the past 27 years now. uh, I feel one of the most important things for a child is being compassionate, being there, like Manoj said, being there for the child is most important. And if I believe that if a child has at least one adult in his or her life with whom he can just go and share anything, with whom she can go share anything that she wants to or he wants to, that'll be great. And for me, my philosophy of parenting is compassion and, of
Thank
course,
you.
unconditional love.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I think that's even the way you're speaking, there's so much of calm, and I wonder where that comes from after having 4 children. So you're a brave heart. I'm sure you've heard this a lot of times, but then I think you're really brave in this day and age to have raised 4 children and that too with such compassion. So it's really nice to know that. So,
Thank you.
coming to Netra and Varun, now since both of you are on the panel together, the question
Yes.
is, what is your parenting philosophy, and does it look different for each of you, or do you have a combined something which is together that you have as a parenting philosophy?
Um, I mean, yeah, we always work together, uh, yeah, and uh, come up with ways to uh, handle and we always believed in something that is mutual and as others said, the experienced people said that we always we definitely wanted to get a connect and emotional bonding between the parents and the children. So we always believe in talking to the child and being very close and sharing everything and even whatever we feel we share with the child, and we always believe in a family bonding. So that is one thing, and then we always have a positive attitude towards the child. So we don't use much of negative words, and we don't say don't do this and don't do that, and rather we say do this and do that, kind of a approach. So, and whenever we want to do something, we always say first we talk to the child and then do it. So,
So this has been our philosophy from the time my daughter is born. So even when she was an infant, so we would actually tell her what I'm doing. So we would tell her, yeah, I'm going to lift you and going to give you a shower. So basically, a child also can understand, just that he or she cannot express. So, and we need to treat them as an individual. So that's what we both believed in. We had a lot of talking from when she was in my womb to, I mean that's there in the, which is proven. So we had a lot of talking, lot of music, and when I was carrying her. But once she was born, there was a lot of talking. So everything, any action I would do with her, we would talk to her. So we would tell her, I'm going to hold you, I'm going to take you here, I'm going to do this to you. You're going to have your food now. So, and at every point, we would talk to her, treat her as an individual. And I think that makes a difference. What we see her today, that actually makes a difference. She's 6 years old, but still we see a difference. But I'm sure, like, once she grows up, this will have a good impact on her. And there is one more thing what we believe is we don't want we the main thing would that we would not want to compare kids to kids. We would not. I mean, it's one thing which we believe. We never want to impose or tell her that he has done this, she has done that. You have to do this. So we have to treat them as what they are. They have their individuality. We have to allow them to groom what they have to be. So giving that chance and treating them like individuals, I think is our
Yeah.
philosophy. And definitely, like how ma'am said, compassion and love, unconditional love, is something, is to sum it up, I think that is also adds a lot.
Yeah, we don't believe in that rat race kind of environment. We believe more in a collaborative and a teamwork kind of a philosophy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great. And you've just started your parenting journey in comparison to the other two on the panel who have probably been parents for long enough now. They have, gone through the entire spectrum of toddlerhood to adolescence to maybe even
Yes,
like
yes,
Manoj said,
different
uh,
stages.
in college. Yeah, so there's a lot of wisdom that's coming from this entire panel, and I can see that the major, the patterns are one is compassion, like all three of you have said, individuality, and I think though you're using different terms, it's about respecting the child. To be a person and not as somebody who you have to talk down to. And that I think is the kind of parenting philosophy that I'm understanding from all three of you. So that's great. Thank you so much for your answers. Um, so the next question I'd like to ask is Manoj. I know that you are one of the founding members of Bangalore Schools, which is a fantastic group, and you're a great admin who's making sure that the discussions are going on great. Sometimes you've had to stop some discussions as well or ignite some discussions. So it's really great work that you're doing there. Do you see parenting has changed from before to now? Do you see that parents have changed the way they're thinking about education from maybe 20 years ago?
Yes, to a great extent, I would agree to that. It was so heartwarming to hear Netra and Varun talk about their journey of a 6-year-old, and wanting to see the independence in the child and not wanting to be part of the rat race. And I think they are the new generation of parents, and more generations are learning the way the new parenting is happening. I mean, I would say these were exceptions earlier, but they are getting into norms now. My parents gave me the freedom to decide what I wanted to do. And I'll tell you something very, very drastic that happened. At 14, I went to and told them that I'm an atheist, and I want to pursue that. And nobody objected. Coming from a family of believers, they gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do. I went on and said that I want to stand in college union elections. I wanted to go to Republic Day parade when I was doing my third year graduation. They did not object to that. They were there, and I knew that they would back me up. And I think that is what I'm carrying forward to my children. And I keep telling that if I'm half as good as my father was, I would do a great job. That's what I'm trying to do, and those were exceptions at that generation. My parents were exceptions because I was part of the rat race, definitely. Knowingly or unknowingly, you automatically become part of it. But today, when I look at it and I said, "Hey, my son doesn't want to go to school. Fine, we are going to homeschool, and we are going to pursue what you wanted to do." Now, people are not looking up to me and say, "What are you doing?" Nobody is asking me that question because that's slowly becoming a norm. People are accepting the fact that yes, the child can sit at home. It's perfectly fine, which would have been a major issue when it was earlier. And today we talk about break year. We talk about a term called break year. I took a break year when I finished my 12th standard, and I did not know the term was break year, but I took a break year, and my parents allowed me to take a break year. So I don't think it has changed. It is more in terms of the perspective of a parent and you being able to learn from what they have done and being as good as they are, or at least half as good as they are. But the acceptance in the society, the acceptance in the parent circle has definitely changed over a period of time. And I can definitely see it in the Bangalore schools group, the questions that were coming up 10 years back and even now. But is the majority still there? No. The majority is still running behind the IITs and the Gs and whatever it is. They still want their child to be in school from 9 o'clock, running homeworks. And if the homework doesn't come home, they get petrified, they get worried. They're still worried about what Sharmaji's son is doing. So that's there. It will take time to change, but I'm very, very happy to see a lot of new parents accepting the fact that we can parent it differently and we don't want to be part of that societal pressure on my child.
Brilliant. And I think that gives us all hope, right? I mean, uh, it means that there can be a change in education also, because if one of the stakeholder is pushing for education to change, it means that there will be a little better movement in terms of the needle moving towards a better form of education.
My comfort is that it is moving towards the good. So that's my comfort, and the way I'm seeing it as a graph, only looking at the 67,000 member community, is that we are going towards good.
Wonderful to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing. So, next question is to Kavita. Kavita, you've been, like you said, from the last 27 years, you've been meeting different kinds of parents and different kinds of children who, the entire gamut of the range of children that you're meeting, who are maybe special children who have special needs, or it could be neurodiverse children, it could be children who are gifted. So, and I think neurotypical children as well that you've been meeting. So, my question is, um, through all these, how do you ensure that we are teaching children to be more independent? How can we ensure as parents to make sure that we allow children to grow independently?
One of the things is to trust the process, to trust the process of life, and every child has their own individuality, their own developmental milestones. So many times I have a facilitator who comes and works with me, and she brings her 1 year, 4 month old child with her. And there are times when she asks me, ಅಕ್ಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಮನೆಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, I hope it's all right if I speak a little in Kannada.
Yes, please.
ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಅಕ್ಕ, ನಮ್ಮ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಮನೆಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ ಮಗು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಏನಕ್ಕ, ಏನಾದರೂ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಕ್ಕ ನನ್ನ ಮಗಳಿಗೆ? ಸೊ I can see the words that she's picking up. There has not been, just because she is very selective in one or two words, or she has her vocabulary, that does not mean that as of now she will start talking the whole language. So I say, nothing to worry. You have nothing to worry. And each child, give the child the right environment. And, this is something that we've always spoken for years together, scientists, psychologists, biologists, nature versus nurture. How much is it that we can do? So, early intervention, understanding the child, all of this is something that we are looking at. So, if I have to tell anything to the parents, it is respect your children, trust the process. There is always learning happening. My question always is that children from as soon as they are born, and probably Netra and Varun know much better that they could feel the learning happening in the womb itself. As probably one of the parents spoke to them, there was a communication which happens in the womb. So learning is all the time happening. And children, this is something which always I ask, and what has made me get into the work that I'm doing is they pick up, learn to see things, feel things, touch things. They learn to walk, they learn to talk, everything from the environment without, being demotivated. And what is it that we usually do now? I used to say by 4, now it's 2.5, 3, where they say, no, I don't want to do this. This is boring. What is it that we as adults, as parents, as educators are doing where the word has come in boring? Why has learning become boring? So this is my quest. And I think the best we can do is trust the children in their learning, even if it is something that they are using their mobile phone. The amount of projects that they're doing using, digital phones, the different kinds of things is like amazing. The amount of knowledge I'm getting just because I'm asking the question. And they come up with so much more knowledge than we actually know. So all I would say is listen to the children, and there is always a point, there is something they're trying to say, and trust the process.
Brilliant. Trust the process. It's simple enough, but I think it's very, very powerful because when we respect the child, I believe that they will lead us. And what you said reminded me of Dr. Sugata Mitra's hole in the wall experiment. I don't know if any of you have heard that. So, in a remote village in India, there was one computer placed in a hole in a wall, and there was no instruction given. There was absolutely no teaching that happened. But within a month's time, all the children in that entire village had learned how to browse the internet on that computer, get the information, and be able to do things with that particular gadget. So, what Kavita said just now, that you allow the child to learn and learning will happen. I think learning happens despite our education system and not because of it. I think learning and education are two very different things, and that's what I'd like to bring here. So, thank you for sharing that, Kavita. So that kind of segues into what I wanted to ask next to Netra and Varun, that there's so much choice available today when it comes to education, right? So just walk us through the process of how, as parents, you decided on a school for your child, and what are some of the considerations to keep in mind while choosing a school?
Yeah, so basically, like we didn't want, as we mentioned earlier, we didn't want our child to go to a regular, conventional, modern school. I don't know what, but where there's a lot of competition, a lot of rat race, and there's comparison and pressure, and no time for her own individual development. If he or she wants to learn music, she would not get time. She would just be stuck with doing her homework. I know people who spend 2 hours, 3 hours a day doing their homework after they come back home, and after that they have tuitions. So we were very clear that we don't want a daughter to go to such a school. So we wanted something more practical, more more, I mean, the thoughts coming from the child is more important. So it's not like we condition them. You can't say, I mean, this is what you need to learn. So we wanted a school where the child can voice out. She can say if she wants this. I mean, she can agree and not agree. So we wanted an alternate school, to be very specific. So that is what, and definitely a school which is more open, more accepting, more compassionate, and don't say you're a bad child, you're not doing this. I mean, that is something which comes to the kid naturally when they say, if I tell her something, she say, no, I'm not a bad girl. I say, I'm not saying you're a bad girl. I mean, these are the terms, vocabulary, and the kind of thoughts which from a very tender age will come to their minds if they go to a regular school, and if they don't perform in any assessment or exam or test. I mean, there is so much more pressure to start with. To get into a regular school, grade one student needs to know to learn, needs to read and write. I mean, we are sending kids to learn there. I mean, we are not here to do the. They're supposed to read, they're supposed to write, they're supposed to talk, they're supposed to talk English. Why should they talk English? They are in the house learning the mother tongue.
Yeah.
And these things like these is what actually, made us think that we don't want such a environment for
Yeah.
a daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, the philosophy of the school mattered to us. So the vision and the philosophy of a school before we joined her to Tapas, so that's what we were looking at. So uh, we had a synchronicity of
Aligned.
we were aligned to what Tapas was thinking, and the philosophy on the vision. So the even the student to teacher ratio
Yes.
and all those things, the personal interaction with the teachers, and emotional bonding, all those things matter to us. And the vision where Tapas said we are going to get a nice campus where there's a connect with nature. The connect with nature mattered a lot to us. So that's where we feel that the modernization in the urban cities, the people and also the kids are lacking. the connect with nature is not there. So that was one of the important factors, the indoor and outdoor spaces and all those things. uh,
And I would specifically want to mention one point here. So, having put Veda, my daughter, to the alternate school, like, you can see a difference in her. She has developed her individuality, her vocabulary. When we talk to her, she also wants to be a part of discussions in the house. She would say, okay, if there is some issue we want to discuss, we include her in the conversation. It is mind blowing that she can come up with some suggestions which can be worked. That's really so nice. And she actually tells us if there's any problem which we are facing at work or at home. She wants to be a part of it, and she wants to talk to us. And it's really nice. She feels so included. It's really nice that her I think in whatever 8 months she's gone to school, I think there's a marked difference in her
her
whole
way of handling
personality. Yeah,
way of handling
I feel
things
she's
is,
more aware of things, more aware, and she can visualize what is the problem and come up with some thoughts what she has.
so I would say more than theory, the practical aspect is given more importance in
Practical, and
the
yeah,
academics.
and also more than education, I think the life skill, the like personality is developed. So tomorrow if she goes outside, she can actually react to a existing situation. It's not only about learning maths, learning science or language or anything. It is a holistic development for her.
Thank you for that. I know the question I asked was what were your considerations for choosing a school, and then it ended up being a testimony for Tapas. So I'm not complaining, but thank you so much for that. Right? So brilliant. So it kind of brings me to the next question, and that is, Manoj, something if you can answer that. We've been discussing about making sure that children are independent decision makers. They're given a lot of freedom, and I think this is something as a parent that you believe, right? So my question is, how do we stop over parenting, and what is your advice to parents who are these helicopter parents, always hovering around, and every small thing they have to have a say in what their child is doing? So how do you do that?
Before I go there, just to take from what Netra and Varun said earlier, um, uh, schools doing these assessments of children going into first standard, uh, most parents do not even know that it is illegal. As per RTE, it is illegal to do any kind of student assessment for admission. It's plain illegal, and the schools are still doing it. And parents are queuing up in front of the school at 5 o'clock in the morning, get an application, make the child sit and write all those tests and assessments. And since we have a platform, I want you to read RTE. Section 13 says very clearly you cannot do any kind of assessment for a child for admission. It is clear, plain illegal. So if a school is doing it, remember this: you're sending your child to a school which is already following illegal processes. So what kind of a morality, what kind of a ethics that you are expecting that school to teach your child? So that's one part of it. Now coming back to your question on parenting, uh, helicopter parenting, micro parenting. There are a lot of terminologies that are coming up nowadays, and we see it a lot. Um, I know that as a parent, you're always worried when your child is out cycling. You're worried he might fall down, but you always forget the journey that you have taken. You have fallen down from cycles. You've got lost in crowds. You've done all of that. If you survive today, your child will also survive. And the child is independent. The moment the child is let free, the child knows how to handle situations. The child knows how to take care of itself or herself. That's how the human brain is wired. That's how your child is wired. The more you put a fence around them, please remember that at some point of time this child is going to go independent. You're not going to spoon feed that child when the child is 20, 25 years old. You are not going to do that. The more you do that, you are going to be counterproductive for the child. Now, the bigger challenge is people don't understand it that the earlier you start on it, it's easier for the child as they move on at a later stage. So, one, you need to have the confidence on the child. Like Kavita was saying, you need to believe that the child is capable. It's your child, So if you've got up the child right, the child is capable. Otherwise, you need to question your parenting, that you're not being able to do what you're supposed to do for the child. Two, believe that the child is in a community, in a village, which is taking care of children. So you need to be around people which is taking care of that. I know that it is not good old days where everything was safe around there. So you need to be protective. I'm not saying that don't be protective, but don't be that magnet that is always on top of the child. Don't be that umbrella that is always going to protect the child. The child needs to be on rain, water. It needs to be outside. I mean, it needs to live its own life for it to kind of do it. Otherwise, what essentially you're doing it is you're planting a tree and you're taking it out every day to see if the roots have come. The tree is not going to come out. So that's what most parents do. So don't do that. Let it be on its own. There is a natural progress of growth for a child that the nature has given it, and it will grow. What is the that can happen? Your child will not become a doctor, an engineer, or whatever you wanted to pursue, but the child is going to do and is going to do something for with its life, right? I am a recruitment consultant, like you said. 85% of the jobs that existed 10 years back do not exist today. How many of us are doing what we studied for?
Yeah.
And 85% of the jobs that are there today will not be existent 5 years from now. You talk about chat GPT, you're talking about AI, you're talking about so many stuff. 90% of the jobs are going to vanish. So
Yeah.
what are you preparing your child for? If you're preparing your child for an engineering or a medicine or an IAS or a CA or whatever it is, most of these jobs are going to vanish. Are you preparing your child to face life? And the only way you can prepare your child to face life is to make them face life day one, not when they're 20 years old, because they will be not be prepared. So do not parent. Your job is to take care of the child. Your job is to be the protective wall behind as and when they require it. Create an environment in the house that they are able to come and tell you that, hey, I fell down.
Hmm.
I made a mistake. I goofed up. Create that environment and then tell them how to handle that. The more micromanage you do, the child is going to be a disaster. Not from any other perspective, but from a perspective of a child not being able to face the life on his or her own terms on a later stage. That's what I believe in.
These are very strong words. Thank you for that. I think that kind of should wake every parent up if they're doing something like that, right? And
Absolutely. And this is something that keeps coming back, right? This is something that keeps coming back every day, that my child wants a cycle. Is it too early to give him a cycle? My child wants to do this. Is it too early to do that? No, let my child learned swimming in 3 years. He was jumping into the pool when he was 3 years, going down and coming up. I mean, that's something that he enjoyed doing. So let him do that. But he was scared of cycling at some point of time. He did not, which is okay. Which is
yeah,
okay. The more you try to push your child to do things that you want him to do, that's where it gets counterproductive. Let the child do things that they want to do. Support them on that journey. At some point of time, they will pick up the rest of it also.
yeah,
That's what I think. I think parenting is all about. Now the words helicopter parenting, micro parenting, all of that stuff needs to go out of the window. That's not your job. That's not what you're meant to do. You've given birth to that child. The child has a natural progression. Be there with the child, support him, and ensure that the child is getting up on their own. Don't go run to get the child up. Let them fall down. They will get up. If a child, I always talk about this when I do my public speaking program. You know what is the biggest achievement of humankind? Not going to Mars, not going to the moon. No, the biggest achievement of humankind is that we started walking. If the
hmm.
first child which fell down refused to walk, we will all still be crawling. Just remember that.
Thank you so much, Manoj. That was powerful. Two things, two observations that I wanted to share. One is when we reopened schools after the pandemic, and children started coming into physical schooling. The kind of observations that we made where children would just give up so easily. They're not able to do something, and this was not the case before the pandemic, and they just give up and say, okay, no, I'm not able to do this, I'll move on to the next one. I feel like when they were at home, they had this entire uh, help of the parents for everything. They were protected, and all the obstacles were cleared out from their way. And it took a lot of time as a school for us to kind of help children get out of that. So and then when that's happening, how do you focus on, say, reading, writing, and other things like that? First basic independence was required. So I think it was a whole lot of work. So that was one thing. The second thing I do want our listeners to kind of think from what you said is about um, a philosophy called do nothing parenting. It's just do nothing. And this is proposed by one person called KB Jinan, Jinan. If you're interested, please do go ahead and look it up. It's brilliant because it talks about how parenting and in extension education also kind of thwarts every child's growth. And if when you do nothing, actually the child develops a lot better. So I mean, there's brilliant points that are coming out. Great. My next question is to Kavita. Kavita, I think we've spoken about how we want children to be independent and responsible and decision makers by themselves, and we have all these things. But then our society is so focused on results, right? I mean, we want to see how are these children going to do in their exams. I mean, entire learning and education system is focused on the results. I know you have a lot to say about the process of learning and not the result of learning. So, if you can just share with us a little bit about that.
Sure. Since I can see that the clock is ticking, I'll try to make it as crisp as possible. First and foremost is Netra and Varun. I envy you so much that you found the right school. It was a struggle for me. I was happy that all my children went through Montessori, but back then it was okay. After 6 years of Montessori, then what? And me bringing up my children on the farm gave me very few options of what I could do with that. And so finally, my last two asked me, and I gave them a choice. If you want to, looking at all the things happening in education and looking at the pressure which children faced in formal education, I gave them finally a choice, saying that what is it, whatever you want to do, I will, I'm okay with. If you want to go to school, you can, and you don't. And there was one day where my third child came up and said, Amma, just remove me from school. And my little one, my fourth one, also echoed, saying that, please, ma, I don't want to go to school anymore. And yes, you can teach us at Pathshala. And so uh, that was, when you say this is what I'm looking for my children. Because being with children, one of the things which I have seen is like what you mentioned earlier also, that this is the marks I need to get. This is the A plus I need to get. If I don't get above 80, this is where this is the consequences. Um, there are parents who come and share what they hear from other parents. In fact, there is a parent who has threatened the child that do not eat sweets until you get 80 marks. And there is much more. And thank you for the question that you asked me, what is this doing? I am very worried about the self esteem of children. I had the opportunity to go and work with schools all around Karnataka, where I go and help, because of the NEP policy, I'm training teachers with the 21st century skills. And I also have the opportunity to work with ICSE and CBSE children who are going to ICSE and CBSE schools. And here I see a completely holistic child when I go to Yadgir or Tumkur district, where child is just, there is no water in school. So here is one child from sixth standard going down to the sump, getting the water out and carrying it. And there was a recent camp which I went to, arranged by one of the very well-known international schools. And here I see a Montessori-based school. And here I see there was hmm, a coconut tree, the branch fallen down. The child just stood and said, "How do I cut across? I don't know what to do." So I think just these examples just tell you, okay, what is it that we need to do and what is it that we need to look into in the process. So the process is hurting children after the pandemic, especially. I'm getting On Saturday, Sundays, usually I work a lot with counseling because Monday to Friday I'm working with education and helping them with their cope with exams. And here I get children. Seventh standard child from a well-reputed school came in the other day, and mother said, Kavita, I don't know, I haven't spoken to her yet. I saw marks on her shoulders. And after I asked her, she started crying. I look at it and it's mostly self-harm. So she has just gotten her previous test marks, where the average has been 13 out of 25 in the whole class. And so just listening to that has given her so much anxiety. She hadn't gone to school that day. And it has given her so much anxiety. She's gotten to the bathroom, taken her steel scale, and started hurting herself, saying that my friend who scores the most in class has gotten this, and I'm so afraid to go to school and ask for my marks. So there has been a 2 year gap in education, and yet we are looking at children passing their 8th standard exam, ninth and 10th with flying colors. And there are consequences. Parents come with, there are going to be consequences if you do not score this marks. So I'm afraid, I'm really afraid what is going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. I think and I like saying this, right? I mean, we are a society who are obsessed with percentages and 98 and 99s and hundreds and these kind of percentages. I think the first thing we should do is ban all newspapers from publishing the top scorers of an exam. I think the minute we stop advertising that these are the celebrated children, there will be some change, I'm hoping, in the society. But I'm also happy to know that with the NEP, there's a shift in the focus when it comes to learning. And I'm hoping that kind of continues. And by the end of 2030, we are able to see that the focus is shifted from results and marks and uh, all these to something better. Also, what you mentioned about the child inflicting self harm. I think that is something I've been hearing a lot these days. I think, and it does definitely concern me because more and more teenagers are resorting to self harm because I think as a society we've told them that they can't show anger, they can't really just have an outburst, and so they're inflicting self harm. So and it's a very
Just,
worrying trend.
sorry, just to add to this, when I asked her what it is, she said, it is better than the pain in my mind, the pain that I
Mm,
feel on my body. That way I
mm,
can stop the thoughts, the
yeah.
pain which is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was some video apparently that was doing the round, which kind of gave children the idea that if you're having any kind of pain, inflicting this another hurt on yourself reduces the first kind of pain, which is what your student has also mentioned. And I think these kind of videos are doing the rounds and harming our young ones. So we have to be more aware. We did a session today morning. I think that 10 o'clock we had a session on social emotional learning by one of the speakers. So we did speak a lot about how social emotional learning cannot be taken for granted anymore. It is something that we have to develop right from day one. I mean, there is no way that we can, uh, focus on learning without focusing on social emotional development. So that is something that we need to help students address. So I think we are almost at the end of time. If any of the audience members have any questions for our panelists, you can put it up in the comment section and they will be able to answer here. I think finally, just want to ask all of you, what are your parting thoughts, right? I mean, just very quickly, if you can tell us maybe three things that parents can do differently today, starting today, that can help this parenting journey. Just quickly sum up and then we'll end the session after that. Manoj, we'll begin with you.
Okay. So when you said about the 98, 99 percentage stuff, the only time I've seen those numbers was in thermometer, nowhere else. So really not worried on that. Second is I think when Netra and Varun were talking about the alternative spaces, commendable job that Tapas is doing. A lot of spaces are doing in terms of bringing awareness there, and these are great initiatives to have parents talk about their journey. I am an alternative parent, and I'm a living testimonial to the fact that alternative works in every perspective. My child is somebody who passed out with that 98, 99 percentile even though she was in a alternative space in a 10th standard, and then she continued the journey that she wanted to do. So the whole thought process that if you're an alternative, you're not a bright student or you will not get marks is completely wrong. My child is a testimony to that, and a lot of her batchmates are testimony to that. And so many of them have gone ahead, even including IITs and all that, so, because that's what that child wanted to do, and I think it's a child's decision. So my thoughts: one, trust your child. They know what they want to do. Stand by them. Two, when you give freedom, it also should be aligned to responsibility. So have that thought in their mind that with great freedom comes great responsibility, and stick to that. Uh, and the third, be a parent that you're supposed to be, and not that you've seen somebody else doing. So don't be the Sharmaji, be yourself. And that's what the child is looking up to you on. And come what may, give the confidence to the child that you're going to be there, supporting them. Have that open honest communication going on in your house, that the child is able to come and say anything, everything to you. And the moment that is achieved, communication is a key for survival, for sustenance in a house. To have that kind of an atmosphere in that house, and the journey is so peaceful. Journey is so enriching. This journey is so full of life. That's my thoughts. Thank you for so much for having me here. It was an absolute pleasure meeting Kavita and Netra and Varun. And Netra and Varun, all the very best for your journey. I know you've just started this journey, but it's a very enriching journey.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
things that you see as challenges today, you will sit back and say, why don't I get those days again?
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
great to be
Thank you,
part of
Manoj.
it.
It's very valuable advice, Manoj. Thank you for sharing. Kavita, top three things that you want to leave parents with.
Yes, one of the things I would say is stop comparing. No two children of yours are going to be the same. And definitely, even if you don't, they are having their own measure and they're always looking up to you. Stop comparing is one of the things. Second is stop feeling guilty about um, what you're doing. And we tend to overdo things because of our guilt. I'm not there, so let me do this. Or I've not been here. Stop feeling guilty. Third is going to be listen. Listen to something. There are words that they are saying. There are words that they are not saying, and yet you can hear. So if we can come from that, would like to just leave with, consciously we teach what we know, unconsciously we teach who we are. Many of the things that we carry, the trauma that we carry of, being parented, and we unconsciously pass it on to them. So if we are aware of what we are doing, need not be that our moms and dads did the right thing, although we have become, it's just probably because of the process. So please have independent thinking because the society we are living is completely different. Thank you
Brilliant.
so much for having me here.
Brilliant, brilliant advice. Stop comparing, don't feel guilty, and definitely listen to your child. These are three very important things for parents to take back. Thank you so much for sharing, Kavita. Mitra and Varun?
So first of all, thank you a lot for all the advices and all the suggestions.
There's a lot to take.
There's a lot to take from this. So as parents, we always believe that we need to be friends with our children. First of all, we don't come in from an angle of giving too much of guidance and too much of we know that guidance is required in certain aspects, but it's not coming from an angle of dominance or taking control. So we just believe in developing a bonding and friendship first of all. So that is one thing, and definitely, uh, we allow the child to become whatever the child wants to become. So whatever the child wants to do, in fact, at this moment, what the child wants to do, we allow her to do it. So we allow them to do it. So they may become something else later. We don't know what in store it's there for them. So that is one thing.
And one more thing is very critical, as ma'am said, to listen to them. I think there are instances where my daughter has told me, "Don't cut me off, mom. I'm trying to tell you something." So it could be very small. It could be very small, but I'm sure there is some message there. And so, say for example, I would be talk in conversation with some other person, but she wants to say something. I'll say, wait, wait, wait. No, no, that's actually a wrong thing to do. I'm sure she has something to say there, and we need to listen to them. So I think that has been quite a shift for me in the past few weeks, where I've tried to. It was a learning for me that I was cutting her off. I was telling her not. I was not listening to her. I think that made a lot of difference when I actually started to listen to her. I think that is one thing, and second thing is making them more inclusive, and they will feel more comfortable, and they'll feel. I think that will add on to giving them freedom, as well as again inclusively take decisions.
I think great advice from new parents and old parents all together. This has been a great discussion. I know that this wasn't very in depth or we didn't go into one particular topic for a long time, but I'm sure we have inspired parents to think a little bit more about how they want to parent their children, maybe change a few things. I do hope that we've set some sparks and we've set a light, and I hope that parenting looks a little better. Thank you all so much for taking out the time and being here with us today. And all the best in your parenting journey. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. It was really
Thank you so much.
nice being a part of this session.
Thank
Thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priti. Thank you, Kavita.
So that brings us to the end of the parents panel, where we spoke to wonderful panelists who had so many interesting thoughts to share with all of us. We will be very shortly beginning with our next session. We will just take a couple of minutes break, but stay tuned because the next session is very interesting because it talks about project-based learning in higher education and what that looks like. So that is something that will be very interesting to look at it differently from that of school education. So we will be joining back in just a few minutes. Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome once again. We are ready to begin our next session in Tapas Project Shaala, the virtual conference that happens annually with regards to a project based learning in India. And we are the only ones doing this in India. So, a warm welcome to all of you once again. It gives me great pleasure to have Dr. Vikas Shinde with us today. Dr. Vikas Vital Shinde is working as a professor in Mechanical Engineering Department, and he's the director of Center of Excellence in Project-Based Learning at Vishwaniketan IMED, Khalapur, Mumbai University. He is the first Indian PhD in PBL from Aalborg University, Denmark, awarded by the UNESCO Chair in PBL. He is approved professor of SPPU, Pune, and Mumbai University. He has received prestigious Erasmus Mundus Mobility for Life scholarship from European Union in 2010 to 2014. He works as Erasmus Plus project coordinator and has been nominated as the steering committee member for project having international consortium of 6 countries, which includes Denmark, Spain, and Bulgaria. He has 21 years plus years of teaching and administrative experience. He has published 7 textbooks, 1 international e-thesis, published 44 journal papers, and 2 patents. He is guiding 6 PhDs in the areas of engineering and PBL. He has acted as reviewer of international journals and conferences. He has trained more than 7,000 teachers, over 300 plus national and international workshops on PBL and various teaching learning methods. His research areas include PBL model designs, human centric design, and hydrogen energy. He has visited 6 international universities, which mainly include Aalto University, Finland, Coventry University, UK, and Oxford University. He is a passionate entrepreneur who owns a private limited company. So it gives me great pleasure to have Dr. Vikas B. Shinde join us today. Dr. Vikas, a very warm welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Preeti ji. Uh, Let me know whether I'm audible properly.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay. One question is that may I know who is the audience?
So we have parents and educators both who are attending this.
Okay, parents and educators. So, but good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Vikas Shinde, and I will show my face. Yeah. Thank you very much for invitation, Preeti ji. I'm sorry I'm bit traveling, so it's okay. I hope I deliver the session from my car. I have stopped myself. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Can you start my slide, please?
So it's on screen. So the slide is on
Yeah.
screen. You can go ahead.
Uh, See, this is the topic which we'll be discussing today. In a given time of 45 minutes, discussing national education policy is very difficult, and also project-based learning implementation in higher education. So I try to combine these two together, and then we'll be discussing some amalgam of these two, integration of project-based learning in advancing national education policy, and by which I will try to explain you that importance of PBL in higher education that way. Please go ahead. So I will be discussing much more about what are the key findings in national education policy, and there are some of the important proposals and modalities inside the national education policy, and then how this project-based learning philosophy nicely gels with the national education policy, and the most importantly, the higher education will be the most beneficial part of it. And this is my outline and the focus of this. Please go ahead. See, if you read through this document, which is very nicely written, in which it is more important that the complete focus of higher education is nurturing the country's talents and the resources, because there are ample opportunities for everyone to deliver higher education with equal opportunities and also with a great quality. This is what the page 3 suggests from national education policy. And obviously, when we have such a diverse country, we require some common framework through which everybody can work so that the standardization can occur. So the overall spirit of national education policy is to decide the quality benchmarks and to give a equal opportunity to the learners based on some quality benchmarks. So this is the nutshell this slide. Next, please. Yeah, what could be the drive for a change? Because if you see the sustainability domains, and there are 17 sustainable goals which United Nations has developed, and the fourth one is for the education. So what is the important is that inclusiveness and the equitability of lifelong learning as well as the quality education. By 2030, through national education policy, we endure that we want to achieve inclusivity and equity in education. And for such, that we require a transformation, and that is where the national education policy is situated. Next, please. There are some of the important, especially being a educationist in engineering education, these are the some of the important challenges we had in the recent years. For example, 2005, there were a report of NASCOM which emphasizes the employability of engineers. Also, through Ishfal Committee, Knowledge Commission, there was a lot of emphasis on become quality of graduates was always questionable, even though it is true after 10 years also. And then World Bank has conducted some of the important surveys, which also said that 60% of newly graduate engineers are unemployable. If you go to the recent past, there were similar stories behind. And this was the base to change some elements in education. And that is where I started my PhD in project based learning. Incidentally, I am the first PhD in project based learning awarded through Denmark UNESCO chair. And this was the initial point for me that why this PhD was so important. Please go ahead. The keywords. What are the important keywords in national education policy and for higher education both? Is that we are continuously changing our knowledge landscape because there are new frontiers are coming in the technology industry, changing to industry 4.0. Even the social elements are also changing. The geographics are coming very close. So all these things are asking us for change. And for such change, we required some education policy which focus on multidisciplinarity. Because the important challenges is to the graduate is that he should move across the different sciences, humanities and social sciences. Especially if you take the challenge of climate change, energy, water and food and sanitary needs of a people staying on this earth, and some disease managements like corona we had. So whole world came together to fight against this disease. So, but if you see, when we try to cater with the need of corona, all world came together where the all disciplines work together to address multidisciplinary issue in learning. So this is where you require a collaboration from the different entities, and this is where the national education policy focuses, promoting interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity in education. This is the focus I will do when I talk about project based learning. Next, please. Yeah, the emphasis, especially on higher education, is to build the higher order cognitive thinking skills, and these skills are more importantly like critical thinking and problem solving. And at the same time, when you are solving the problem, when you are creating some solutions, there are some social, ethical, and emotional capacities which needs to be developed among the students. And this is where project-based learning plays an important role, because when I explain you what is project-based learning, immediately it will come to your mind that automatically PBL promotes higher order cognitive skills. At the same time, it promotes problem solving. Next, please. Yeah, these are the some of the identified issues of national education policy. This only understands that in India, especially in higher education, we have many disciplines, many branches of engineering or pharmacy or management. And since history, we have divided ourselves in various branches of engineering and other professional educations. But national education policy has identified it, and very prominently it is trying to say that these boundaries has to be diminished slowly and steadily. So there is a movement across the boundaries of the disciplines, and that is where the national education policy is critically understands the importance of cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary learnings, and obviously the autonomy which is given to the teachers to practice his own way of learning. I congratulate Tapas Education because they are practicing such an important project-based learning approach in their education, and that's I can definitely be very sure that future is very bright for Tapas students. At the same time, the institutional autonomy, because most of the times we understand that 90% of the institutes across India are affiliated and they have very little autonomy. So national education policy focus on these two aspects. One, giving autonomy to the teacher to practice his own way of teaching learning, designing the curriculum, and there is an institutional autonomy where you can develop your own practices, best practices, which will help learner to acquire knowledge, skills, which will help him to become a professional. And that is where the identified issues are there in national education policy. Please go ahead. Yeah, research is one of the component which has been less emphasized, which is highlighted in the red. You can see, and most of our time that's low standard of undergraduate education because the affiliation system, which is resulting in low standard of undergraduate education. This is been clearly noted and identified in national education policy papers. Okay, because since I have gone through it, I just highlighted few portions of it. Please go ahead. Now I'm coming to the point that how project-based learning helps to cater these issues, especially in higher education. And here, when I say PBL, I'm interchangeably using two words. One is a problem-based learning, and another is a project-based learning, because there are many models which are in existence in the world. Both worlds, I mean, the problem-based learning and project-based learning have been interchangeably used in the world. Okay, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. PBL in HAI, that is where we are discussing. Why there is a need to change? Because if you see the Ralph Tyler statement, what it says that the learning takes through the active behavior of the student. It is what he does and what he learns, and not what the teacher does. This is the correct picture of existing education where the teacher is coming prepared in a class. He is delivering the best of his lectures, and most of the time these lectures are not so effective because it is not teacher's fault, but it is about the pedagogy. I hope my audience understand what is the meaning of pedagogy. It is the way of delivery of content and curriculum, because most of the time the students are listening, and the science says that the listening span of anyone, even though today you are listening to me, but I'm sure after some time you will lose your attention. That is where the science come, because everybody has focus of 13 to 14 minutes. After that, the attentive span of any human being is lost. So there is a need to change frequently in your teaching learning styles or pedagogies. Next, please. The fundamental difference. This slide is very important. Please focus on this slide, because mostly in India we have traditional education, where the traditional education focus, where the teacher centered. Teacher is at the central role because he decides how to deliver the content. He decides what kind of a books, what kind of a knowledge system he can deliver to the students. Most of the time he delivers existing knowledge which is available in the books, and very often construction of a new knowledge is sidelined, and that is where the exploration, discovery, and invention, the critical thinking, innovativeness comes into the picture. But in education it is very less promoted, because we are mostly focusing on instruction, and that is where the existing information is passed. And mostly the education is input based. We provide the class, we provide the content, we provide the curriculum, we provide the teachers. Even though we know that we provide the question papers, question banks, everything is input based. So when everything is input based, the output is very much stereotype, that student prepare for the examinations and pass the examinations. And even in that part also there is a variation. So the standardization, where you require a new knowledge, construction of new knowledge, student centric learning is missing. Where the PBL focuses on student centric learning approach, it is skill based, where students have flexibility to explore, students have flexibility to explore new things, discover new things, innovate. All these opportunities are provided in PBL. Next, please. Now, this is what we discussed. Please go ahead. Yeah, these are the some of the important graduate attributes which we wanted that every engineer should possess, or every higher education professional should possess. He should have good communication, ability to work in a team, and lifelong learning. These are the some of the life process skills, where a candidate for a whole life is using these skills. At the same time, if you go on a left hand side, whatever the domain knowledge he possesses, he may be from engineering background or from management background, he has to have its abilities to apply knowledge. Identifying the problem and solving the problem is a key skill, and how to do that using the designs and modern tools. So these are the some of the important graduate attributes we expect that graduate should possess. Please go ahead. Yeah, this is my center, so go ahead. I will not discuss on about the center, but I just kept it for a reference. Please go ahead. The center actually works for implementing PBL practices across India. We work with the different institutions. This is the definition of PBL, which is bookish definition. Let's go ahead. Yeah, just have a pause here. See, if the God has gifted us very important things, where which I focuses on three important elements or organs, we can say. First important organ is the brain, and the brain is very critical in learning process, because all the cognitive activities, the thinking, innovation, creative thinking, invention, discoveries, explorations, all this happens through the brain, and that is where the cognitive domain of the learning happens. So the underlining statement is very simple: anything which is required brain is cognition or cognitive domain of learning. Then another important organ is the heart. Everybody is thinking, sorry, not feeling, valuing something, taking interest, motivation, discipline, attitude, all this comes related to the heart. And this goes in the affective domain of learning. And the last is neuromuscular or psychomotor, where your hands, legs, or all neuromuscular activities are associated with the psychomotor learning processes. Why I'm telling you this? Because when you implement PBL, all these three important organs are actually helping you to learn. And at the same time, God has gifted us sensory organs. Because if this could have been more interactive, if I had more time, I could have asked many questions that how these organs play important role. But you can assume that when you see something, you have a visuals. So there is a domain of visual learning. If you see or if you see and hear at the same time, it's auditory learning processes. Your skin touches something, so it's a psychomotor domain. Or kinesthetic learners have more touch point there. And the tongue, which helps you in communication. So it actually, the way you communicate with the people is, the tongue is a very important part there. Although it also is useful for a test purpose. And at the same with the nose, all these five sensory organs in conjunction with three important organs like brain for cognitive learning, heart for affective learning, and limbs for psychomotor learning, combined together, one learning happens. And if we want to focus on developing any of the skills in cognitive domain, we need to develop activities, we need to develop such a problems which helps in cognitive domain. If you want to develop students on a kinesthetic learning or maybe in psychomotor domain, we develop activities where there is a considerable hands-on. And when we want to develop our students for affective domain, there has to be more on sensitization part of our learning. So these three important elements I will discuss in more detail when I go further. Please please move on. Yeah, what is the role of education in developing students? Because whenever as a higher education institution, what we get a 12th science student as an input, and schools are very important element in the development process of these childs, because the input to the higher education if is more learned in the context of cognitive domain, like if they have learned more things at the beginning, the role of higher education becomes very simpler. But imagine the schools are not performing well, the education at the school levels are not well, then the higher education will be under pressure. So the schools are very important, and that is where I like the approach of Tapas, where they are started project based learning in the school. So the school graduates who are coming out of the school, students, they will be very easily, smoothly inducted into higher education. These students will have lesser difficulty to get transition into the higher education. But imagine a school which is a very stereotype, having only a traditional school set, focusing a lot of fundamentals, they will have difficult time in a transition, because I see the transition which is difficult for such kind of students. So how this transition is achieved? The transformation is achieved through the curriculum. Transformation is achieved through the educational processes, and that is where the teacher's focus has to be there. Because on the left hand side, if you focus, you will see that there is a student who is having knowledge about some new elements or some fundamental attributes and some fundamental skills, but he is not learned enough to enter into the profession. So the higher education has to transform these 12 science students to the new skill set, which you can see on the right hand side, which is K2, A2, and S2. And if you see this change is happening in higher education, then we say that education is very, very effective. And to help all such higher education institutions, outcome based education domain like National Board of Accreditation or ABET, Washington Accord, or a NAC, National Assessment and Accreditation Bodies, has defined these outcomes so that the higher education institutions can develop a curriculum which helps students to build this kind of a knowledge base, attribute based, and skill based. Please go ahead. So our role is so important as an educationist. Please go ahead. Now, if you see, if you give one problem to the student, especially in higher education domain, if suddenly the students will start thinking, because he will start thinking about the problem, and that becomes a drive for his learning, that how I can solve this problem. So he will start focusing on problem solving when we pose them a challenge through the problem. And how that problem should be the authentic, that problem should be engaging to him, because you cannot simply give them any type of the problem. You have to give them a problem which is authentic to his learning. So the learning goals, learning objectives comes into the picture. So a teacher can choose a problem which is challenging to the student, and at the same time it is authentic for a learning process. But here is the issue. What is the issue here? That when students are given a challenge to solve a problem, there are natural limitations of the brain, natural limitations in the form of knowledge, because every student cannot have knowledge about that problem. He also have natural challenges, like its individual attributes are different, individual skills are different. So if you want to solve a problem, individuals will have a lot of difficulties. So next slide please. So what is done typically in project based learning, there is a team. Why there is a team? Because the problem which drives the learning is difficult, problem which drives the learning is challenging. So single brain cannot solve that problem. You need to have multiple brains, multiple hands to work on. And that is where the teamwork, social construction comes into the picture. Social learning comes to the picture. So the fundamentally, problem based learning or project based learning starts with the problem which is given to the student. That problem is identified, pre-identified for our learning goals. The students are teamed up based on their interest, motivation. So where the affective learning comes into the picture. And when they start working to solve the problem, they required to exercise their cognitive or cognition. And when they start solving the problem, start understanding problem, their cognition gets developed. And since they are solving the problem, their ability to solve the problem also improves. And while solving the problem, they need to apply tools, they need to apply their brains together, so they will create a new designs. So automatically they have to use the new designs, new tools, and when they apply these designs and tools, their kinesthetic learning or psychomotor skills also gets developed. So if you go back to my slide, to the attributes, can you go back to the attributes, back three slides back? One more. Graduate attributes. Yeah, graduate attributes. I think it's much big, much bad. Yeah, here. Okay. Now imagine a student from 12th science is entered into the higher education, and the institute is practicing project based learning. It suddenly, when he enters into the first year, he has been given a one problem to solve. Now if the students are already come through the PBL environment, he can easily understand how to cope up with this problem. But the conventional school education doesn't actually promotes problem solving. So here the trouble will start. Now let's take a case of both students. The one student who has already learned in a PBL environment, he knows how to work in a team, he knows how to solve the problem. And one student who is not acquainted with the PBL processes, he will have a difficulty. But we'll keep for a moment, we'll keep these two students aside. We'll just focus on problem-based learning strategies. So what will happen when a problem is given to the students? So he will start thinking, okay, how to solve this problem. So when he start thinking, his ability to solve the problem will get enhanced. At the same time, the teacher is explaining him the fundamental concepts, which he is learning from the tutors. So his ability to apply this knowledge and relate to the problem will also improve. So ability between the theory and practice will improve. So when he want to solve this problem, he will start thinking about how I can solve this problem. He will create some new designs. So his ability to design will also improve. How he will communicate this design to the people? So he will communicate through the posters, he will communicate through the presentations, he will communicate through the oral presentation. So the communication will also. While solving these problems, he has to dominantly work in a team. So team working ability, ability to work in a team, being a leader of the team, organizing the team. So all team based skills will also improve. And when you solve this type of a problem, you need to understand that there is a lot of information available related to the problem. How to use that information, how to gather that information, from where I need to connect my mentors. All these are lifelong skills because self learning is one of the important component of life learning. So one problem helps to achieve all type of skills. Let's move ahead. I will take the question later on. Yes, yes, move ahead. Let's go to the PBL principles. Yeah, just wait, just one slide, one slide. Yeah, no, no, one slide. PBL principles. There is a lag, so sometimes I am getting my slides. PBL principles. Yeah, okay. So these are the some of the important principles of project-based learning, which Graf and Kolmas, these are the two researchers who has developed. What it says that when you give a problem to the student, it triggers to the brain. So it becomes cognitive learning. When you relate this problem to your course, so your content is taken care of, and when the students work in a team, it's a social aspect of a learning will come to the picture. So I will explain this with some examples. There are some examples ahead. Please go ahead. So this is not needed. Next. Yeah, okay, just focus here. What you can see at the center, if you are active here to see, what you can see here at the center is a problem. Because if you compare to the model of Aalborg University, it's a problem driven model. What normally we do in India is we have already developed courses and we try to attach a project to the courses. But unlike in Aalborg University, what they do, they identify the problem first and they decide what are the learning goals of the problem, how a curriculum can be designed to solve that kind of a problem. So when you develop a curriculum which is a problem driven, automatically the infrastructure we need to augment as per the problem requirement, and the teaching learning classroom instruction will also be newly designed because the problem is at the center, and then the assessment also need to be designed differently. So if you shift to the problem based curricula, all things will get changed. So the based on a problem curriculum will get changed. When the curriculum changes, teaching learning will also change. When teaching learning changes, infrastructure requirement will also change. And when teaching learning is changing, assessment will also change. Because the assessment will not become more traditional. Assessment will become more problem based. So the problem based assessments will come into the picture. So this is where the problem based curriculum educational model is different model. Please move to next. One example I will explain and then I will stop. Yeah, this is Barrow's taxonomy, because how there are sometimes questions from the audience that whether the instructions are absent in the PBL. No, instructions are not absent. they are minimum, because the tutor will play a role of as a facilitator. There is no or very minimum teaching. I would say if there is 100% teaching in a traditional education, I would say this a 30 to 40% component of teaching there, or instructions or tutoring, and 70 to 60% to 70% is a self learning. Obviously, when this self learning starts, the tutor has to be there. So Barrow says that when you work in a problem based learning environment, tutor has to be there in front of the students. And how the learning happens? Learning happens when the students sit together, explore the problem in front of the tutor, and the tutor helps them to explore about the problem. That is where the tutor's role will come into the picture. Another role of a tutor is developing new instructions and developing new labs and lab methods, so that their psychomotor skills will also get improved. And when the students are given some input from the instructor and the students apply this, this becomes a complete PBL based approach. Please go ahead, because last 4 minutes are remaining. This is Aalborg University. Aalborg University has a group rooms to facilitate PBL. Go ahead. Yeah, there are popular myths about project based learning which will not go in detail because I need to explain one example. Please go ahead. Keep on moving till I ask you to stop. Move ahead, move ahead. Yeah, there is one example I wanted to explain. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, just wait here, just wait here. So this is one of the important problem. Just I will try to explain and then I will close my session. See, what you see in this picture is there is a green grass on the river bed which causes water ecosystem to damage, and also it is harmful for the human beings. Every year municipal corporation employs workers to remove it. Now this is called as an open-ended problem. When such open-ended problem is given to the students, student will start thinking about the problem. So this is a challenging problem to them. Nature of the problem is very important. It is sometimes called as an ill-structured problem, where we say that it is not clearly defined that what to do inside it, and it is asking students to solve something new. So this is the nature of problem which drives more learning into the students. Then there could be a confusion that to whom this problem can be given. So there comes the second principle, which is called as a contained principle. Because if I am a teacher in mechanical engineering, for that sake, I will ask my students to develop a machine here. If I am from a civil engineering, I will ask, okay, students, what is happening because of this green grass is water is getting deteriorated. So can you see that how water is getting, so can you do conduct some research in civil engineering? If I am a biotechnologist, I will ask, okay, the whole country is suffering because of this green grass. Why don't you solve by using some genetic alteration? So one problem can have multiple solutions. So this is a classical PBL problem. But the teacher has to understand that what is the learning context here? What are my learning goals, learning objectives, and how I can attach this problem to my learning goal? That is where the content principle will come into the picture. So the cognitive principle, where you challenge your students' brains, and the content principle, you try to contextualize the problem into the academic domain. That is the context will come into the picture. So I'm giving a final remark. Go ahead, please. Yeah, this is one example. If I'm a teacher of kinematic machinery, where my learning objective is helping students to design a machine and mechanism, this problem will help me because my role is to find a suitable problem where my students can design a machine. Please go ahead. Now same problem I can utilize in my class. Just I have added a red portion into a problem that is it possible to remove this hygiene with a lesser human effort, or lesser manpower, or within a less time? So directly or indirectly, I am asking my students to design a machine or mechanism which suits to my course objectives. I hope I have explained the principles of PBL, and then how a problem can be chosen. And this, I would like to have a concluding remark. Just move ahead, please. Yeah. So these principles we have applied to this problem, and there could be many problems from different domains like pharmacy. Go ahead. Biotechnology. Yes, there could be different problems for different domains. There are different models which are developed by my institute under the project-based learning center of excellence. We have developed these models and we are implementing it. We have recently got A plus grade because PBL has been accepted as a very important pedagogy in higher education. So these models cannot be explained in this little time. I require a lot of time. So please go ahead. I'll just briefly explain you how this model works. Each model is been designed for some purpose. Like course level PBL helps to learner to learn the content. Technology PBL is help learner to learn technologies. Industrial PBL help learner to acquire industrial exposure and industrial problem solving. And international, we have international model where every year we send 200 students internationally, and that is open for all. If anybody is interested to know more, just ping me. I will explain you how that model works. And through our experience, this has immensely helped our students for MS and PhD abroad and learn future technologies. We have developed 28 startups because of this, all models. Just go and to the last slide, because these are many models which can work with. These are complex models to be explained. Yeah, but these are some of the glimpses of these models. This, yeah, just go to the last, please, so I can conclude. This is a Vishwaniketan students working on a PBL environment. Mentoring is essential in PBL. Yeah, these are concluding remarks. The PBL is very important pedagogy which accommodates all type of the learning styles and the backgrounds. It connects to the real world problems. It brings the context into the class. What is important here is the choice of the problems and careful integration. And then problem solutions drives the creation of new products and the services, which is where the we as an Indian uh, community of engineers, Indian community of professional educations wanted to promote development of a new technologies, new solutions, new problem solutions. So with this note, I would like just to say thank you very much. Uh, Within this 45 minutes, I try to cover national education policy as well as PBL, which itself are the two broader concepts. But thank you very much, Preeti ma'am, to giving me chance. I close my session and open for question and answer.
Dr. Vikas Shinde, thank you so much for that session. I think it was we gave you a time constraint. It was obviously something that required a lot more time. But what is heartening to note here is that when you are implementing PBL at an engineering level, at a higher educational institutional level, and you spoke a lot about how school education should be able to support that. And with the NEP's focus being on transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary learning, I think more and more schools are going to look at becoming um, something like the ones that follow PBL, right? And so we hope that we will be able to support all those schools when they do start on this journey. But what is really interesting to note is that this form of learning lends itself very well to whether it's engineering, medical, or any of the professional courses that students undertake. And so there is hope for PBL to be better accepted in India.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Right. So I think there aren't too many questions. If the viewers have any questions, you can put it up in the comments section, and we will reach it to Dr. Vikas. And whenever he has answered it, we will reach them back to you. I think we are at the end of this session. and this has been a very, very interesting morning. We started out by talking about social emotional learning. We had parents who shared their journey of how parenting of children in alternative spaces has been. Now we have spoken about PBL in the context of higher education. I think that covers like a whole gamut of the process of education. So I'm really excited to see what else we have in store for the remaining sessions that we have today evening as well as tomorrow. So hope all of you are able to join us back. Our next session of Tapas Project Shala is at 4 p.m. today. Please watch out for Dr. Stephen Levy's session on how to make PBL possible in a classroom, which ensures development of the character. So tips and strategies that helps you become a better parent, better teacher following PBL is something that you can expect today evening. We also have a session on, we have the panelists, the jurors of Jaga, an initiative where students have given their voice in how the school campus should be designed. So please watch out for that as well, where our panelists are going to talk about how the designs were and what were their considerations for choosing the designs that are going into the book. So join us for all of that and more today evening. A very, very warm I'd like to thank Dr. Vikas once again for taking the time out, for ensuring that though you are traveling, you have ensured that you have taken the session for us. I'm so
Thank you very much, and good luck for your conference also. And very happy
thank you.
to contribute. And in future also, I would like to connect with your initiative, ma'am. It's a very good
Yes,
initiative. Please go strength to the strength. If I could help you in some any ways, I'll be very happy.
thank you so much for that support, sir. We need all the support that we can
Yeah,
get.
yeah, sure.
We will be in touch with you for sure.
If there is any question from the audience, I'll be happy to take.
I will send those questions if we have it. Once we are
Yeah,
broadcasting this once again, we will take the
yeah,
questions and send those emails to you, sir.
yeah, yeah.
Thank
Thank you very much.
you,
Signing
sir.
off. Thank you very much. Thank you.